Left of the box. Pierre Poilievre recently got kicked out of the house, like the place where they do all their arguing during question period, because he called the prime minister a mean name. Called him wacko. And so in our House of Commons, we have very strict rules of decorum. And there are certain things you're not allowed to do and say. And question period is just a time where they get to argue back and forth. And it really is theater at its fullest, like political theater at its fullest. And yeah, Pierre Poilievre called the prime minister a wacko, got kicked out. And to say that that was pre-planned is putting it mildly. Pierre is such a dweeb. He's such a dweeb. And he's going to be the next prime minister. Anyway, this is the moment of the name calling.
Mr. Speaker, it is a choice for him to implement extremist policies that have taken the lives of 2,500 British Columbians every single year. Since the NDP has asked him to reverse course on his and formerly their radical policy, 22 British Columbians have died of drug overdoses. But he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No.
So he said by this wacko policy by this wacko prime minister. They call the prime minister a wacko there.
That is not there are a couple of things which are going on here today, which is not acceptable. And I ask all members, please, to keep themselves, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace wacko with extremist. He is an
The Honourable Member to please.
Ooh, I take back what I said. He's not a wacko. He's a poopy head. Ooh, look at me.
I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the Honourable Member.
So they go back and forth.
Withdraw that comment.
Where he's just, so they go back and forth a little bit more where Pierre is just like, oh, I take it back and replace it with radical blah, blah, blah.
Just please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
I simply withdraw and replace with the aforementioned adjective.
Again, so childish. So childish. Like, just please withdraw the comment as per parliamentary decorum. Oh, I withdraw and replace. Ha ha ha. Take it. Owned you. Owned you.
Mr. Poilievre, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair.
So he just got named because he said Mr. Poilievre. See, when you get named, you're in trouble because part of the decorum is he didn't call Justin Trudeau a wacko. He said the prime minister is wacko. So you have to call each other by, leader of the opposition, prime minister, representative of Durham region. Like you have to go by titles. You don't call people by their names as a way of keeping the decorum to making the attacks less personal, which, it doesn't matter. So then when you get named, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, young man. Pierre Poilievre. Go stand in a corner.
Pursuant to the authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House and from any participation by video conference for the remainder of this day's sitting.
So then, yeah, he leaves, and then the rest of his caucus leaves with him. And so they all walk out because he was told to withdraw his comment, which he refused because he's a teenager, apparently. And so then they all walked out in support. And again, this is just so sickening to me. Here you have somebody who is purposely skirting the rules. He knows better. Like, he knows what the decorum is. He knows that it's not allowed. So he's done this completely for show, for political brownie points with his racist buddies. That's all this is. It's just right-winging antics. And so the rest of his caucus walks out with him. Whereas when Sarah Jama was kicked out for wearing a keffiyeh, well, she wasn't quite kicked out, but nobody followed suit. Nobody else was wearing keffiyeh in support. Nobody else was making any sort of stance saying, if you kick her out, I walk out too. No. The right protects their own in the way the left doesn't, unfortunately. And so in this particular little question period, apparently Pierre Poilievre lied 84 times during question period on May 1st. Since Pierre was removed from the House on April 30th, we've noticed that the demeanor of his party changed, almost like a kid who is grounded. Full list of sources and references. Please see Pierre is lying on Twitter. And if we go through this, you hear dings every now and then to indicate when he's lied. Part of the decorum that is so frustrating to me is that you aren't allowed to call out people for lying. You get in trouble if you say that was a lie that the leader of the opposition just said, or the prime minister is lying. You're not allowed to call someone else a liar, even when it's provable facts. Like, I'm not a fan of these decorum rules. Do I care that he called him a wacko? No. I care why he did it. He did it because it's all for show. It's all to make himself the victim. Oh, look at me. I'm being canceled. I'm being kicked out of the house. And yet, if you try calling him out for the lies that he's doing, then you also get kicked out. It's disgusting that decorum is precedent over anything else that would make sense in these question periods. And so Andrew Perez here on Twitter says, Pierre has sat in the House of Commons as an MP for 20 years. It has been his only job. He knows well what the rules of the chamber are, what sort of language is deemed unparliamentary, etc. Speaker Fergus gave Pierre Poilievre multiple opportunities to walk back his language yesterday. He refused repeatedly. Mr. Poilievre knew full well what he was doing. He was intentionally playing hard and fast with the House rules so that he could be thrown out, feign outrage, and then ultimately fundraise over the entire pathetic situation. Oh, and the call for the Liberal Speaker's resignation? This entire episode would be hilarious if it wasn't so sad. My message to Canadians, don't let Poilievre take you as fools. He built an entire career around fooling many people. Don't let him extend his charades into the Prime Minister's office in 2025. Don't let Pierre Poilievre make Canada a laughing matter. And so, yes, after they were all kicked out for blatantly breaking decorum rules, they then called for the House Speaker to resign, which, no, he didn't. The House Speaker did what House Speakers are supposed to do. Like, the House Speaker was completely in line with what their duties are. But again, it is what Andrew here is saying. It is all just to feign outrage to fundraise. And Rachel Gilmore, who I've featured on here plenty of times, has a wonderful breakdown of this little situation.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre just got kicked out of question period over unparliamentary comments, and then the rest of his party left in protest. This came after the Prime Minister accused Pierre Poilievre of pandering to white nationalists and refusing to condemn them. Here's what's going on. After news broke that Pierre Poilievre visited a Freedom Convoy-style encampment with an RV that had a Diagolon flag drawn on the side, while some others in media tried to downplay it, I did some more digging and broke the news that some of the people at the encampment had closer ties to the far-right extremists than originally reported on. Now Poilievre is facing calls to condemn these guys, who, even though they're laughing at him, do not actually like or support him at all, despite him pandering to the people who at one point traveled in the same circles. So here's what Trudeau said.
So this is the same group that said that Pierre Poilievre's wife should be sexually assaulted. and he's out there trying to gain their favor. One of the biggest risks of having Pierre Poilievre as prime minister is how much of a fucking pushover he is. Like, he can get bullied into doing anything. The fact that he's still trying to carry the lunch bags for these guys after everything that they've done, they laugh at him, they mock him, they've threatened his wife, and he's still there trying to gain their favor. He is a spineless, weak, pathetic doorknob. Like, I can't get over how dangerous it is to have somebody so spineless as a leader of a country. Like, anyone can push him over. Like, even I look at him and I want to become a bully because it would be so fucking easy. And I wouldn't feel sorry about it either. Like, it's just so dangerous to have somebody so spineless in a leadership position of any country.
Said about all that today.
It was a choice to pander to white nationalists, not an accident. And it is a choice to continue to not condemn them and condemn everything they stand for in his quest for votes.
After that, Poilievre called the prime minister a quote-unquote wacko, which as a career politician, he knows you're not allowed to do.
When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko prime minister?
And Poilievre refused to withdraw the remark, at least not without replacing it with the word extremist. So because of that, the speaker ended up kicking him out of the House of Commons. And after more back and forths mentioning far-right extremism, the rest of the Conservative Party left the room. So yeah, that kind of screwed up question period, where, if we're being honest, nothing really gets done anyways. But it does give opposition parties the chance to directly question the governing party. Though these days it's mostly just used to get juicy clips for social media. Naturally, we're seeing both the Liberals and the Conservatives trying to score political points off of this. The Conservatives have already sent out a fundraising email. As for the far-right extremists, they seem to be enjoying every second of this exposure. But you know what they really don't love? When we report on the things they actually say and do. Like when they post vicious racism, laugh at videos of people in India being brutally killed by trains, and when they platform literal neo-Nazis.
And just to give Rachel even far more credit, this group has also said that they would laugh at her if she was gang raped to death. And she's still out here reporting on them. The amount of courage she has doing her job is so admirable. Like, I can't express enough, like, how much courage she has to have just to do her job and to face off with these racist, right-winger, horrible, horrible people.
So yeah, all of this is very stupid. But what's very real is the risk of someone exposed to this group internalizing their language and deciding to do something about it. That is serious. Or if you prefer, wacko.
Oh, and we saw one of those guys earlier. Let's just go back to that quickly.
For you guys.
So this is one of those people that internalize that messaging.
And being undermined publicly is really gross. As a citizen born and raised in this city, it appears to me that this city is in a little bit of decline because you guys are being hamstrung at every turn. And I want to just give a little bit of a tidbit.
Mr.
I'm sure I'm going to get cut off of this.
Again,
Everyone I know in my
I'm gonna
community is
stop the
getting
clock.
armed, which should scare everybody here. Everybody in my community, I'm in social networks with hundreds of people, are getting armed. They're all getting their firearms license because they see these
Mr.
pro-terror
Pottins,
protests
I'm going to ask you to stop speaking
unabated.
on other topics.
Anyway,
I am.
This is the type of person Pierre is pandering to and encouraging. And as was mentioned, we have T-Dot resident here. So at 2:30 p.m., wacko comments. 3 p.m., Pierre removed from Parliament. 3:54, wacko fundraising email sent by CPC. And 6:10, wacko t-shirt sale at Rebel News. Yes, that did not take long. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by the wacko Prime Minister? And at one point, Pierre did try to deny that he called the Prime Minister directly a wacko. I've called him a lot worse. Just saying, and I own it. And then this was the email. Oh, donate today. The Liberal speaker just threw Pierre Poilievre out of the House of Commons for calling Justin Trudeau's drug policy wacko. It was because he was calling Justin Trudeau wacko. Was Pierre wrong? Yes, he was actually. He lied 84 times in the next question period. He lies. He lies. That's what he does. He lies all the fucking time. Legalizing open use hard drugs, blah 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 blah. Yeah. And get the t-shirt from Rebel News. Yeah. And that's all it is. And it just astonishes me that this pushover, Weasley, whiny crybaby is most likely going to be the next prime minister because Justin Trudeau is so bad. Like, it's just, we are in a bad situation because it's not just Pierre that we'd be electing into office. It's all of those people, like that guy, who now feel vindicated, who feel validated, who feel like they're on the right side of the issue. They're going to get amped up and feel a license to actually start engaging and acting out on this even more. Here's a little bit more of an indication of just how dangerous Pierre's going to be. Poilievre hints to police he would use notwithstanding clause to change laws. That is dictatorshipness actions right there. The notwithstanding clause in Canadian law is often used, well, in fact, up to this point has only been used by premiers of provinces, and it is designed specifically to override people's rights that are protected under the Charters of Rights and Freedoms. Because a conservative, and I do mean conservative, premier doesn't like the fact that they're not allowed to trample over somebody's rights. A recent example of this is in Saskatchewan, where they made it so teachers would have to out trans students that were not feeling safe coming out to their parents. And that was challenged in court, and it was shown to be these kids are protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and you can't do that. So the premier, Scott Moe, used the notwithstanding clause to override that and say, no, we're going to totally dismiss their rights and force them to be outed to their parents. To have a prime minister willing to use this to trample over the rights of Canadians is horrifying when you look at the circles he's sucking up to. Who do you think he's going to use this against? You know, it's not going to be his right-wing buddies that are threatening all this violence. It'd be more like those peaceful protesters you see on campuses. This cannot be allowed to happen. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he would use whatever tools the Constitution allows to pass criminal laws if his party forms the next government. Speaking to the Canadian Press Association on Monday, Poilievre promised to implement more stringent requirements for bail and make it harder for convicted murderers to transfer out of maximum security prisons. All my proposals are constitutional, Poilievre said. If that's the case, you wouldn't need to use the notwithstanding clause. We will make them constitutional. Oh, okay. We will make them constitutional versus they are constitutional. Okay, that's different. Using whatever tools the Constitution allows me to use to make them constitutional. I think you know exactly what I mean. Yeah, that would be the notwithstanding clause. Poilievre didn't explicitly say which tools he was referring to, and his office provided no official comments when he asked for clarification. In the past, conservative leaders have said they would use the notwithstanding clause to overturn a 2022 Supreme Court decision that struck down a law that gave judges discretion to hand out consecutive 25-year blocks of parole ineligibility to offenders who committed multiple first-degree murders. That decision came at the case of Alexander Bissonnette. Okay, we don't need to go into a lot of this, but we have another person who is very good at concisely breaking this down in ways to communicate how dangerous this is.
But anyway, I want to talk about Pierre Poilievre and the dumpster fire that we call Canadian media. Dumpster fire. Flames shooting out of it. So Pierre kind of insinuated that he would use the notwithstanding clause to change justice laws because, you know, all those times that the Conservatives try to pass laws and then they get found unconstitutional. Screw the Constitution, right? I'll just use the notwithstanding clause to do what I want to do because Trudeau's a dictator. And it is kind of curious. It seems to be one party that constantly uses this notwithstanding clause to curtail rights and freedoms and, you know, Constitution. Guess what? It's not the Liberals. It's always the Conservatives. It's strange, right? I mean, I thought freedom, right? No, I guess not. I guess it's just when convenient, right? Okay. Pierre's got his awesome slogans. Trudeau, not worth the cost, right? That's it. Trudeau is not worth the cost. And then the expenditure list comes out. And Pierre Poilievre, in a 3-month period, has spent almost $2 million on travel expenses and accommodation and expenditures. $1.7 million. There's no election called, right? I'm not confused.
And keep in mind, this is also another trend with Conservatives to way outspend the Liberals on pretty much everything. Like the Doug Ford's, the Premier's office, since he's been in power, the cost to run that office has doubled. They're very good at spending taxpayer money for things that don't benefit taxpayers.
Right? But that is worth the cost? I'm confused. Now, where are my people at that were freaking out about a Trudeau vacation for months on end? And the media, too. I'm looking at you, media. Where are you guys at? If Trudeau's not worth the cost, but somehow Pierre Poilievre can get away with spending almost $2 million in a 3-month period when there's not even a fucking election called. Explain that to me. And before all you PP for PM trollbots come into my comments and be like, oh, now do Trudeau's expenses. No. That's his job. He's the prime minister. It's his job to travel across the country and do different things in the country. That's not Pierre's job. He's not prime minister yet, okay? So just shut your face. And the opinion bloggers at the Globe and Mail, they're on it, right? See, here's the thing. Pierre Poilievre, he can travel across the country on the taxpayer dime, spending taxpayer money like a drunken sailor, meeting with extremist groups. That's all good. It's really Trudeau that needs to think of the future, and he needs to get out of the way or something. And then check out this headline by liberal bought and paid for media. For sure. Totally non-biased stuff here, right? Post media, way to go. You know, it's really a shame that you're this close to bankruptcy and folding and all of your employees being unemployed. It's such a shame. Bye-bye.
We are in trouble. If Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister, we're not going to be governed by him. We're going to be governed by whoever pushes him over. And right now, considering how much he's trying to suck up to these right-wing extremist groups, we're in trouble. What this country looks like will change. The freedoms we have, the safety we feel, a lot of that will be stripped away in ways of workarounds and stuff. I've mentioned before, our Charter of Rights and Freedoms protect us a lot better here than what the Americans get protection for. That doesn't mean it's foolproof. You know, it doesn't mean it will absolutely keep us safe. And when we have people so intent on circumventing it, a lot of people are going to suffer. And we run into this problem right now of, like, part of the reason why Pierre will win is you have this right-wing extremist rabid base that are just so energized at watching liberals suffer, watching the left suffer. Like, they get off on this. They just want to own the libs. They want to see us cry. They want to see us hurt. because, they can't deal with all the issues and the pain that's inside of them. They can't deal with the fact that it's the systems that are also crushing them. They just want to, project it onto other people, and they want to see us hurt. And that's riling them up so much that they'll be at, rallies and protests. They'll go out and vote. But meanwhile, on the left, we have nobody that is rallying the base. Jagmeet Singh certainly isn't. Justin Trudeau, definitely not. A lot of people hate him on the left. So when you have so many people that are riled up on the right to attack the left, and so many people on the left that are just so fed up that they're not going to participate, Pierre's going to win in a landslide. Like, he's going to win in a landslide because so many people on the left, as opposed to, trying to energize the base, trying to find somebody to step up, just unplug. And we're in a very, very dangerous position. And the thing is that it will never get reversed. You'll never see people on the left so eager to see people on the right suffer. And partly because we tend to have more empathy. We see the systemic problems. We see the part of the reasons why they're angry, why they're feeling hopeless, why they're being repressed. We get it. And we want to solve those problems. But for a lot of people on the right, they're sold the idea that in order to get rid of those problems, you just need to take out this group. That's an easy fix. It's not. So much work has to be done in society to repair the wrongs that have been done. It's not easy. It won't be easy. It'll take a long time. The question is if we're going to make it that long. I am terribly, terribly worried of what will happen to this country if Pierre gets into power, with what he will plan to do. And again, it's not just about him being in power. It's about how that will motivate his base. Those people saying that they're on social media and all their connections are getting guns, getting ready to fight these Hamas terrorists. Because keep in mind, they also look at people like me, queer people. We're also, on their list of people that need to be taken out to keep society safe. I don't know how effective Pierre would actually be as prime minister because, like I said, he has no spine. He can be pushed over. But what this would do to his base and how energized they would get and how much more vocal and rampant they would get. That's the scariest part. Check the sandbox. Sorry, this is very doomer of me, isn't it? I just want to wake people up before it becomes too late. I want people to get involved. I want people to demand that Justin step down. Like, I don't care what a leader, I don't want Chrystia Freeland. I don't want her to become the next leader of the Liberal Party. I am fine voting the Liberals back in, and I'm fine even if it would be with Justin Trudeau. But if they have any hope in hell, they need to get rid of Justin Trudeau and have somebody else be a leader. And I want the NDP to actually become the party the base wants. To get a leader in there that is not Jagmeet Singh. Nikki Ashton would be amazing. Matthew Green would be amazing. There's so many amazing people within the NDP that could be so much better than what Jagmeet Singh has been doing. We need to get them in as soon as possible. This is checking the sandbox. Reality is doomer, says Bed Lefty. Positive, progressive change is always possible. It may become more difficult, but it is always possible. That is something we need to remember going into these next elections, both in the United States and here in Canada. That no matter what happens, we can turn things around. We just need to get people informed and get them involved.